What's good, Chiefs Kingdom? It's Friday, September 2nd, and this is KCSN Update, your daily dose of Chiefs news and content from us here at KC Sports Network. We are going to be joined by the Chief in the North today. That's Seth Keysor. He's joining the show to talk about the Chiefs 2022 season just a week before it's set to begin for real. Now, real quick, if you're a Chiefs fan, if you're a real Chiefs fan, please try and hit that like and subscribe button right now. I was actually watching YouTube with my son, watching some Minecraft videos last night, and they said that it's actually impossible to hit the like and subscribe button at the same time. And I bet you can't do it. Is that a childish way to get you to do it? And is it made for, younger kids? Yes, but I still bet you can't do it. All right. Seth is going to join us right after this video I made.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
All right, welcome back. And as I mentioned earlier, we are joined by a special guest today in Chief in the North, Seth Keysor. Seth, it's always good to see you, my guy.
Man, it's awesome to see you too. This is so great. I simultaneously feel younger and older sitting here talking to you and making Chiefs content together. Like I'm double checking to see. Well, actually, I wasn't even on Twitter when you and I were making content together. I think you're one of the people that talked me into doing it. Like, Seth, you have to be on Twitter. This is like in 2010. And so I'm like looking to see for updates on Matt Castle, but fortunately, that's not what we're doing anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I remember talking with Joel Thorman, the blog father.
Yes.
Back he and his brother, Chris, started Arrowhead Pride back in the day. And I think we were talking a little bit about it before. And I think there's gonna be a lot of side conversations, a lot of side tangents during this KCSN update video today. But I remember joining Twitter and telling Joel and being all excited, like, hey, I joined Twitter. And he's like, welcome to 2009 or something. Like, you're so far behind. You should have done this a long time ago. But we were talking before, man, it's really fun and special, I think, for all of us that have known each other for so long in this space. It's, myself, you, Matt Connor, Matt Verderam, Craig, Patrick Allen, all of these people, we've been creating Chiefs content before they were good. Before Andy Reid, talking about Scott Pioli and Todd Haley and all these things, blogging at Arrowhead Pride. And now how fun that was and how cool it's been to just kind of watch everybody go to different platforms and do their own thing, knowing that, we've known each other and been playing in this space together for 12, 13 years at this point. It's cool.
And it's so funny when you think about what it took to create content at that point, because things got dark. Especially, if you go to 2000, at least 2010 had some fun moments, and you could talk about Jamal Charles, and there were some things, but I remember 2012, I remember emailing Joel occasionally, be like, what do you want me to say, man? What, they're so bad and it's inexplicable and it's terrible, but it is so cool. Having a whole community of people that you've known longer than a lot of your friends that you see, in your regular work life or your regular everyday life, where I can say, when I say to Jazz, hey, I'm going to do something with BJ today. She's like, was that the guy with the parking pass 10 years ago? I was like, yes, that was BJ. And it's just so funny. Seeing people go out and spread their wings and then being able to work together, even though we're technically supposed to be competitors, but we don't care. And so we're able to just make content together. And it's just a really cool thing seeing so many friendly, familiar faces. Of course, now all the young bloods are coming for our spots. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, we think the same, and that, content's not a zero-sum game, and that we can all have different platforms. We all do different things. People like different personalities, and there's millions of Chiefs fans out there, and we don't need millions of people to support what we're doing, to have fun with what we're doing, and to be able to make what we're doing work. And so we say that we're not competitors and this and that, and we do it by sharing and doing stuff on each other's platforms. So yeah, the whole thing's been special. And I respect what you've been doing. I'll give you a chance to plug your Substack, that what you're doing with your Chief in the North newsletter. But first, let me pay a quick bill here real quick. And we hear from our friends over at DraftKings. All right, the wait is over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is officially live in Kansas just in time for football season. That means betting legally on same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, and more anytime and anywhere across the Sunflower State. To celebrate, DraftKings is giving new Kansas customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $5 on anything and get $200 in free bets instantly. And Thursday night is almost here. So if you want more action for opening night kickoff, everyone can experience the thrill of DraftKings early win promotion. Get up 7, you win. Bet on any pro football team of your choice. And if your team leads by 7 points at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. That's code KCSN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700. Must be 21 years old, physically present in Kansas. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus issued as free bets. 1 early win token issued at opt-in. Money line bets only. Deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at DraftKings.com/Kansas on behalf of Boot Hill Resort and Casino. All right, Seth, let's talk a little Chiefs. This is the last Friday that we'll have that we're not getting ready for a weekend that includes at least Chiefs football. I know there's a bye week and there's Thursday night games and all that, but football is almost here. Some college football is already back. I know Mizzou fans were excited watching Luther Burden do his thing last night. That kid's going to be special.
Yes.
That was fun to a lot of times the hype never matches. It's crazy when the hype actually exceeds what you want. But let's not talk college football. But man, what do you got working on with your Substack with the Chief in the North newsletter? What's new?
It's I actually just dropped a piece today on Jalen Watson, which was kind of funny that you were talking about working together. I DM'd Maddie Lane as I was working on Jalen Watson. I got done reviewing his film and doing my thing. I suppose I'll plug myself. I chart every snap for failures or successes in coverage, and
you do the work.
I go beyond the box score, all that fun stuff, and it was really fun. So I got done with that with Jalen Watson for preseason, and I was like, man, I really like this guy's tape, like a lot. So I DM'd Matt. I'm like, look, man, I need someone to talk me down here because I'm kind of the optimistic guy. Everyone knows that. I've been hurt before, more Cyrus Gray and all that stuff. But I was like, I need you to talk me out of this because I think this guy could play tomorrow and they'd be fine. I won't quote him directly, but he did not help take away my optimism. No. I didn't know he was.
He's not going to slow you down on Jalen Watson.
Yeah, and so I completely DM'd the wrong guy. He's like, so I'm working on that. I've basically just been doing one great thing for me is with the big gap now between preseason ending and the regular season is I can go back and look at the film for guys. So I looked at every snap of Leo Chanel. I looked at every snap for Jalen Watson. And then I even got a chance because Mahomes was so good in that second preseason game. I did my first Patrick Mahomes review of the year, kind of laying out the methodology and calling him a fire-breathing dragon. So this is the fun part. I also wrote about the run game, but we don't need to talk about that if we don't want to.
We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I was just excited that I got to talk to somebody that I've been creating Chiefs content alongside, whether it's same platform, different platforms for, again, more than a decade. Yeah. I think there's 10 or 11 of us, and we were all trying to find a time to get together. I think that would be fun. But yeah, dude, we talk about the rookie class, and we went back, and I remember writing an article back in 2015 with that Marcus Peters, Mitch Morris, Ramik Wilson, DJ Alexander, James O'Shaughnessy, Rakeem Nunez, Roches. I think I'm missing somebody in there too.
R&R, man.
That guy's still playing. It's awesome.
He's still in the league.
And he's such incredible. A good dude. The defensive line always seemed to have the best personality. He was like a Chris Jones type personality before Chris Jones got there. Colin Saunders, just a fun group of dudes. Yeah. Loved R&R, but Nacho.
Yep.
As it was called. But that draft class back in 2015, I remember talking with John Dorsey when I was working at the Chiefs, and it was actually Kiana Martin, who's the intern at the time. I didn't know how else to do it. Now they've got all these fancy websites that do this, but back then I had her chart every snap played by every drafted rookie across the entire NFL every week, because I had this guess that the Chiefs were getting more, and I called it value because I was associating a snap played on the field to value, because from a coach's standpoint, you're on the field, you're valuable.
Right.
And so we were getting more value out of our rookie draft class than any other team across the league. But that's not there's no easy place to find snap counts that are separated like that.
Right.
And so I created this giant Google sheet, and Kiana, bless her heart, every week, like went in and found like the OMG, got the snap counts, and we're adding them all in there. I think by like week 8, we were the number one. We had more snaps played by our rookie class than any other team in the NFL. And I'm hesitating to do it this year because I don't have an intern. I have to do it myself.
Yeah.
But this class, knowing that 9 of the 10 draft picks made the initial 53-man roster, and some of them might not be active on game day, but they're going to see a ton of snaps played, which is really special for a team. Back in 2015, they were good. They weren't a favorite to win the Super Bowl or a favorite in the AFC. They were one of those dark horse teams that if things came together correctly could happen. The fact that Brett Veach did this with a team that could still be expected to be one of the 2 or 3 favorites to come out of the AFC is even more special, knowing, a quarter of their defense are rookie draft picks. 6 of the 24 guys on the defense are rookie draft picks.
That it is a really impressive draft class to look at. And it's kind of interesting. I'm going to set an arbitrary block starting in, 2019, let's say. Let's look at the drafts post 2018. It's a completely arbitrary line that we're not going to, for any specific reason. They went
to a 4-3 right around then. So there you go.
Yeah.
They made the change. They made the change.
Yep. There's a
roster composition changes.
Yep. Big change there. Big change. When you look at that, and I think the number, it's like something like 26 out of 28 of those guys are still on the roster. And that is super unusual. And it's a lot of these guys, we were just talking about this on Times Ours. A lot of these guys, they're not just on the roster, but they have roles. McCole Hardman, Juan Thornhill, Colin Saunders, Rashad Fenton. They have roles. Nick Allegretti. That's almost all of the entire 2019 draft. And you look at the guys last year, obviously everyone knows what the offensive lineman did. Nick Bolton, who I'm actually obligated to, anytime I mention Nick Bolton, talk about how wrong I was about his ceiling as a player. Because he's like, I think he might be a better pro already than he was a college player. And he looks faster as a pro. And that doesn't make any sense. That never happens. But I was wrong. I'm sorry. I thought he was a 2-down guy, and I'm an idiot. So there you go.
That's a tough one. There were a lot of people, even the lab guys who were on ours were very communicative about his struggles in pass defense in this area that he got better, but not knowing how much value and what his ceiling would be in everything else.
Yeah. And
so
you don't see guys that play at a certain speed in college and then they enter the pros, and you always expect everything. They're going to look a little slower relative because everyone in the pros is a freak. And it's kind of like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his explosion, or lack thereof, is a little more obvious in the pros, when in college he could get by with his quickness and everything else. With Bolton, he literally looks the same speed or faster, and it doesn't make any sense. And so I've given up, and I just say some dudes just know how to play football, and Nick Bolton's one of them.
And we're going to throw gas on the fire because I made that point with George Karlaftis looking like a much smoother athlete.
Yes.
And I'm trying, like, you give credit to George Karlaftis while simultaneously like reaching out or, sending a tweet to Bobby Stroop being like, you're really good at what you do.
Yeah.
Because he worked with George and he just looks like a much better athlete. And when you reach out to Bobby, he's like, he's worked his tail off to do that. And that was the only knock that I had coming out, is that he's relentless, physical, aggressive. He's got the punch, the moves, like the counter move, all of it. He's just not the most explosive.
He had as much
athlete.
He had as much bend as this pen his last year in college.
And I was trying to say nicer, but yeah.
But he was so good at everything else that it allowed him to succeed without ever having to win around the edge with any sort of bend. It was so impressive. And to see him, he was the first guy I wrote about after the game, because one of his sacks, he had to actually bend around, even though it was a little more of a second effort thing. And he also had another quarterback hit where he attacked the edge and he just used a standard rip, bend around the edge. He did that. I reviewed, I think, 5 or 6 of his games in college from his final year, and then a couple from a couple years earlier, because I think some of your guys told me I should. They're like, no, check him out in 2019. He looked more dynamic and all that. I didn't see him try to win the edge with bend once in like 6 games. And to see him do it multiple times in preseason, it's crazy. So I appreciate you adding gas to the fire, which it kind of goes to the overarching point. Every one of these rookies, they've looked good. Like when I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop because it's hard to even be an average NFL player as a rookie. It's almost impossible, really, to do it consistently. You might have some flashes, but you're going to have some terrible games too. That's just how it goes. Whereas we'll see, but I mean, I have not found one of these guys. Maybe there's just one, but for the most part, anytime I've watched them more in depth in the preseason, I've come away more bullish. Like Trent McDuffie, I was happy with the pick. And since watching him like in preseason, I'm like, it's ecstatic. He looks good, and not like rookie good, but good. So it's so much fun.
It seemed to happen at training camp after about like a week and a half, 2 weeks. I think it was the last like third of camp. There was just this, thought out on social. I think it was any one person in particular, but this kind of idea came up of, hey, where's Trent McDuffie? Like we haven't heard a lot about him, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for a corner. Right. And then I think it was literally like the next day he made like 5 crazy good plays. And then the day after that made it a bunch of more plays. And it was like, well, there he goes.
And
so
it's so fun
Leo Chanel's been my guy from the beginning. That dude's just fun to watch. The second they drafted him and you watched his highlights, it's like Arrowhead Stadium is going to love that dude. Not just because the first time he stepped foot on the field at Arrowhead, Mitch Holthus asked him what he brings, and he said violence and physicality. It's like you just made yourself a fan favorite immediately.
No, he's one of those guys where they're going to have to try to figure out a role for him. And it'll be interesting seeing how he kind of deals with what he was asked to do in coverage in college versus what he's going to be asked to do now. I think that's going to be a tough transition for him. But the things that he already does, like he already gets run fits at a level that rookies and a lot of pros don't. And so it's not, I mean, he is really strong. He can take on offensive linemen, but he seems like a really smart player. And so for me, it's going to be hard for him to get on the field because Bolton and Gay are your guys, and they're going to be hard to unseat. But I'm curious if they try to find some extra roles for him besides just playing Sam in the base defense. I'm curious if they try to find some ways to blitz him and just a few things like that, because he is a guy you want just downhill. Because normally when you think of a downhill guy, they're not that fast, but he's like a downhill guy and he can move.
His closing speed when he's within 5 yards of a ball carrier, even in college, you saw it, like the speed was just different. It almost felt like somebody was speeding it up as soon as he got close. That closing speed to wrap somebody up. I personally, the second they drafted him, I was like, he's a rush Sam as a rookie.
Yep.
He is a chess piece for Steve Spagnuolo to move around. We know Spagnuolo likes to get aggressive. I mean, we sent a corner blitz on the first play of the preseason.
I know.
Like, I know they're working on timing, then they're working the different things, and they're not going to show a lot. I just said they did a corner blitz, but a lot of the creative stuff that they're going to do with Leo Chanel is not something that they're going to show during the preseason. Right. It's not something they're going to show during training camp a lot when they know that people are out there watching.
Right.
There's a lot of things that they're going to play close to the vest. And I feel like the really creative stuff that we're going to see from the NASCAR, the third and long packages.
Yep.
We're not going to see that until it's a high leverage, big time situation and an unscouted look for the other team. But anything that gets Leo Chanel moving north and south, they can get him near a quarterback making a play. The guy is going to have some negative plays that are created just by the way that he plays and the way that I think Spags wants to use him as a rookie. And then if he has to get more snaps, we saw flashes. I saw you tweeting some videos out of, him scraping down the line and when he hits people, they don't move. Like he for a rookie, his play strength, his functional strength has been special to see so far.
Well, to see an inside linebacker able to attack the line of scrimmage, interior lineman, and win, not just hold your ground and maybe seal up a gap, but genuinely win, be able to move them to the side and go get in the backfield and make the play, which he did against, I think it was the Commanders, which by the way, should have stuck with Washington football team. That ruled. Yeah. Commanders sounds like a generic create a Madden team, but whatever. For him to be able to move the center and shoot into the backfield from that way, that's unusual. So, and the funny thing is, because you can get excited talking about Leo Chanel, he may have been, at least in preseason, of the guys I've looked at, he was probably like the 5th or 6th least impressive rookie. And that's not a shot at him. That's McDuffie looks great. Karlaftis looks great. Skyy Moore's releases are just So good. And Jalen Watson now, the guy that the article on him dropped today, he's kind of my guy. I mean, I don't want to take him from Matt, so I won't do that. But if he were available to be my guy, he would be my guy because he shows just this knack for understanding the route concepts in front of him. That's why he's knocked down like 4 passes on limited snaps in the preseason.
Yeah, you've known me long enough that when I said it, people that haven't been following me all that long or see KCSN and they see what we're doing, I'm not a big person to make these big grand projections or these big statements about players. I'm always pretty reserved on that stuff. But I went ahead and said Karlaftis is going to break the Chiefs rookie record for sacks in the season by a rookie, which was set by that Derek Thomas dude back in '89 with 10. And 10 sacks is a lot, especially for a rookie.
Yes.
His skill set and all the things that we reward about him, being relentless, not stopping, the physical side, and that he's not winning on the edge. He's not a speed rusher, much like, and I'm going to defend him. So I know I'm going to say it. People are going to pile on him. You won't, especially because I just put it up that way. But like D Ford coming out, he's a speed rusher. He's going to beat you around the edge and he's going to work on everything else, work on the power, the bull, all those other things. Whereas Karlaftis already has that. And most sacks in the NFL aren't by physically, athletically beating a tackle and going right to the quarterback. It's a second, third move. It's a quarterback steps up in the pocket because Chris Jones moved him off his spot and then somebody else cleans up.
Right.
That's where George Karlaftis is absolutely going to excel. And I had likened, and I know Pro Football Focus does their pass rush win rate, where if you have a win rate of 16, 17%, you're one of the best in the NFL once the regular season starts. And we talk about baseball being a game of failure and having to overcome all of that failure. A pass rusher in the NFL is successful 10% of the time, not even with a sack. It's less than us getting the actual statistic that we use from a grand scheme like sacks, whether if it's a half a sack. I did the math and it was 4% of the time. If you're successful, even on pass rush snaps, you're going to be one of the greatest to ever do it.
Yes.
So 96% of the time you don't do your job, you're still one of the best to do it. Being relentless is the single most important characteristic. And if you don't have even an ounce of that, you will never be successful at the level. And now we have a guy that could not be more built for the way that the NFL sees success with pass rushers.
Absolutely. And people tend to get hung up on things like grit and motor and heart and all that stuff. And those things do matter, but it's when you combine them into a physical package of capability, because he has unusual play strength. He's got a little bit more explosion than most power-based guys would have. And now in the preseason, he's showing because he was a little quicker in some of his combine stuff than I think people expected. But he's showing a little bend in preseason. He's just more developed in those areas. And that's why, you talk about win rates. I know he won at a rate higher than almost anyone else in college. And that was without really utilizing the edge a ton. And the thing about being able to threaten the edge, you made a great point. Most sacks don't occur, unless you're Micah Parsons and you are just an absolute freak of nature who can run horizontal to the ground like DT could. They mostly don't just come around the edge. But you've got to be able to threaten it. And then you can create a pass rush plan. And with Karlaftis, if he can threaten the edge at all with an explosive first step, then that means he's a guy who can, like you said, second and third moves, he can follow that up by winning in a variety of ways and force tackles to not be able to predict him. So much of this stuff with pass rush moves is about the plan and the response and the ability to know how to deal with certain moves. And that's why Mitch Schwartz, despite being kind of an average dude athletically, was so great. And Von Miller talked about that with him. It's he always seemed to know what I was doing. I'd start a move, and he's always just a Hamilton, we'll just get this hand right out of the way. It's how did you know I was going to do that? It's why Chris Jones is a great pass rusher, because he's always able to anticipate where the hands are going to be and control their wrists. And he can do it. Karlaftis can do those things, and it's hard not to be excited about him.
One of my favorite, this episode is going to be a rookie expectation. And I'm going to ask you about the rookie class in general, because there's one guy we haven't spent much time talking about, and we'll wrap it up. But you saying that about the pass rush plan reminds me of one of my favorite conversations I had during the 6 years I worked for the Chiefs. It was a conversation I had with D Ford and what he had learned from just being around Tamba Ali and the plan of how he would go about his business. And he told me a story, and it was a game against Denver. I don't remember which year. They're all run together now. But he was explaining how Tom Ali spent the first 3.5 quarters of this game setting up the tackle for the move that he was going to use when the game was on the line late. And because Tamba and his, jujitsu or whatever that he spent all his time doing, he knew the pressure points and where to hit. And he said that that D was telling me how Tamba would keep hitting the tackle in the same spot the entire game. And he would like put pressure on a certain spot. So late in the game, he would hit another spot and he would make the tackle's like entire body just stop working. And people are going to call it out. Like I'm going to have to talk to D. I'm going to interview him and get more details because I can't regurgitate everything, but it was Trent Green and it was for a preseason production meeting that year. We were up at training camp. We were sitting in, it was actually in, I think, the softball coach's office at Missouri Western. I could picture myself sitting there, D talking about it. And Trent and I were just like, this is the greatest. And it wasn't recorded. It was just like background info, but it was the coolest conversation that I had ever heard about a player really detailing what made Tamba special and how he did this. But I remember who the tackle was, but he hit him in a certain spot. His right arm just completely dropped, like right side of his body just like completely got disengaged, being set up all year, goes around, makes a big tackle or a big sack in that game. And D was just saying that that's where I learned that you have to have a plan. And like the level at which these guys set things up throughout the course of a game, that it was chess throughout the middle of a game, that you don't expect it to be so mental, or just these big physical freak athlete guys hitting each other, that there's so much more mentally going on that you don't necessarily know unless you really get into it with the guys. But I'll never forget that conversation that I had with D. But Seth, the one rookie that we have not talked about yet, need to know what's a realistic expectation, because you've already skyrocketed it for Jalen Watson. I've already skyrocketed it for Karlaftis, which first round pick, that's understandable. Leo Chenal, I think, is going to be a fan favorite. Skyy Moore, what's a realistic expectation? Because it's all over. I could convince myself of about anything of what Skyy Moore could do this year. What's a realistic expectation for what Chiefs fans could expect from Skyy Moore this season?
I think I'm like you. I could talk myself into 300 yards or 1,100 yards. I could talk myself out.
Exactly.
Because I could say, well, he's a rookie. Andy Reid's offense is tough to learn. He's got guys naturally in front of him who have clearly been kind of showing some preference, at the very least in Juju and MVS. They might be running a little more 21 and 12 type stuff. Who knows? Maybe Jordy Fortson's seeing the field more, fourth season anyway. But the thing with Moore, that I'll think all those things, and those are very logical things. And then I will watch his routes and the way he gets releases, and the way he's able to create quick separation, snap after snap after snap, in which he did in college, but there was always that huge jump in competition, so you didn't know what it would look like. But in the preseason, those releases are just filthy. And there are certain traits that translate so well in the ability to consistently, against any type of look, get a great release off the line of scrimmage, is one of those, like Keenan Allen's one of the best route runners in the NFL. And one big part of that is his releases are consistently just filthy. He's so good at it. And so when I watch him do that, I'm like, that's going to get him on the field, because he also has made some tough catches. The one game where he really got featured, he made some really tough catches, not just over the middle of the field, but on the sideline. He's got great body control, massive hands, all that. And so to me, he feels like a guy that I think it's going to be slow working your way in because of all that other stuff. But I think as soon as he starts getting opportunities and he makes a couple of those catches for Mahomes, and you start building that trust, I can see his role growing and expanding as the year goes on. I do think it's realistic to say that he could have a between 600 to 800 yard rookie season. And I think that would be really successful, considering the ways that Andy Reid's offense can go. I think the ceiling is higher, just because it's just hard to find guys who can separate instantly, especially against press. And that's where they struggled last year. Anyone not named Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce.
Yeah. And the context of the conversation that we were having that I couldn't quite figure out how I felt about it was, is this the first time in 9-10 years now with Andy Reid that we're going to have 3,000 yard receivers or pass catchers? Because Travis Kelce, I expect Juju to get at least 1,000 yards if he stays healthy. And then it's, can they get a third one between McCole, MVS, or Skyy Moore? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, which one you could convince me that McCole is going to have 1,000 yards or MVS. I'm not going to say we're going to have 5. That's ridiculous. But you could convince me that one of those guys will separate themselves to be that third guy, or at least to have enough big games to hit the 1,000 yards. So now with 17 games,
right?
I was thinking about with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're not going to talk about non-rookies, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire averages 58 yards a game. He's going to get 1,000 yards.
Yep.
Like if he stays healthy, very likely that could happen.
Right.
He has to stay healthy. He's missed for 11 games over the last 2 years.
Yep.
Played in 10 at rookie year, or 10 last year, 13 his rookie year. So, but with Skyy Moore, you could convince me, 400 yards or 1,000 yards. But I keep going back to the separation thing.
Yeah.
If he is open, Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a lot of space to pull the trigger and to put it right where it needs to be.
Right.
And so, yes, you could absolutely convince me that Skyy Moore won't be getting the same amount of attention that a lot of these other guys are. So if he is one-on-one and they try to press him, good luck.
Yep.
Because he can catch a contested pass. So one last question before we end this episode, Seth, and you cannot answer Jalen Watson because you already know. Which rookie do you think will surprise most Chiefs fans of having a bigger role than they might expect right now?
Even though he initially started with the hype, I think he's flown so under the radar that I'm going to go with it, even though it's kind of cheap because he's a second-round pick. But I think Brian Cook, for what it's worth, Deion Bush has put up a good fight for that third safety spot. He had more good God hits during preseason than anyone else. Like a couple of them, I went back. There was one against, I think, again, the Commanders that I was going to post the video, and I was like, you know what? It's almost disrespectful to the receiver because and it was a clean hit. He hit him shoulder to shoulder, and the guy was he just hit him so hard. But I think Cook shows more obvious quickness and long speed than Bush, and I think he's just a perfect fit. You talked about kind of being a tool in Spagnuolo's toolbox. Cook is a guy that in college, he did line up single high by himself sometimes. He also lined up as a hybrid linebacker sometimes. He hits like a Mack truck, but he also has some good speed and quickness. I think he's going to grab that third safety spot, which in the Chiefs defense, you're talking somewhere between 600 to 800 snaps.
Yep. Good stuff. We just named like 9 dudes that could end up having a great season for the Chiefs, which means Brett Veach and his staff are doing a good job. But that is it for today's KCSN update. Appreciate all of you for watching and or listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment or review. We appreciate your support as we try something new and different here at KC Sports Network. We know there's a lot of great places, including the podcast that Seth is on with our friends Josh Briscoe and Nate Taylor called Times Hours. Make sure to check that out, as well as subscribing to Seth's Substack, Chief in the North. A lot of good stuff always coming out. But Seth, man, we appreciate you for coming on this week. This was a lot of fun. And then everybody out there, we appreciate you for supporting us. Seth, you can take us home with a final thought.
Man, I would just tell everyone the season's about to start. Football's here, and it is a great, great time to be a Chiefs fan.
All right. We'll see you all next time.